Okay, I think we can start the session for today. So thank you for joining in. For those of you who've joined in from all over the world, thank you. We welcome to the Chicago Booth Alumni webinar series from the Booth Malaysia Club. Thank you for taking the time to support us and be part of the discussion today. We are tuning in from Malaysia, Dubai, and Kuwait. So our panel's speakers are from all over the world, Middle East, Asia. There's probably a few of you joining from Europe, US, some from, some of the friends who've actually said, okay, they want to be awake for this session. Our distinguished speakers today are Ekta, Tolani, and Maithili, Sagar. This is particularly special for today because we've sort of kickstart a women entrepreneur series and a woman-focused webinar series, part of the Chicago Booth group. Our aim always was to bring the community a lot more closer. Inspire new leaders, find out how the other leaders in the community are actually facing these challenges. What are they doing to make things happen? How do they sort of take this journey either in the corporate life cycle or in the entrepreneurial life cycle or in transition, whatever that phase is. I think there's a lot that's happening. Just to give you a little bit background of Maithili, Maithili is on the entrepreneurial side. She comes from a family of entrepreneurs. And I think inspired by her mom, every time I speak to her, she's always sharing with us how her mom inspired us from day one on the entrepreneurial journey side. And in particular, the education. So you'll hear a lot from her about that. Ekta Tolani, who's joining in from Kuwait, is an executive director for a large family fund out of Kuwait. She's in corporate finance, as you can see. A field that is not so common, male-dominated field, but you are seeing women making a stride into these areas. So without further ado, I think this session is going to be sort of a mix. There's no slides today. It's an open discussion where Maithili will share her journey in the entrepreneurial, and then Ekta will also share her journey from different kind of startups to corporate finance as well. And we will end this with a Q&A towards the end. So Maithili, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. So I want to start off by saying, Anand, thanks a lot. You've really helped put people together and you're bringing different topics. So first of all, thanks for that. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Canada. I was a corporate lawyer in my past life, but I also worked in the family business, which you had mentioned. So our family business was actually preschools and schools in Canada. So I guess that's where my passion for early education came from. And you had mentioned my mother, and yes, huge role model for me because she actually grew that business as a new immigrant in Canada and ended up being one of the top 100 businesswomen in Canada. So that was very inspiring. Since law and the family business wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, Booth was the perfect opportunity for me to pivot, and that's really how I was able to get into tech. So I worked at Amazon in Seattle, in New York, and then decided to, there was this idea in the back of my mind that I really wanted to work on, and that was trying to bring a platform for other preschools, daycares, and early learning centers. So kind of combining that whole piece with early education and technology. And so with that, ended up launching KinderPass like 2 months ago, so I can talk about that whole journey. And of course, it's not been ideal with COVID, like I'm sure many other industries. So I can clearly, I'd love to share some of those challenges and what I've learned with that.
Beautiful.
That's really interesting because, we've actually focused a lot on bringing the education. So you must have realized the last session, a couple of sessions before was also based on education. And in Southeast Asia in particular, we are actually noticing that large schools have been purchased. There's been big investments going in EduTech. Even just talking in the Booth community itself, I've found out there's a lot of venture capital companies which are actually going after large education related things. And Alpha as well, who's one of our alumni in Indonesia, has started
Yeah.
adult education. So there's adult education, there's kindergarten, which is on your side.
Right.
And then, of course, moving into sort of investment side. So that's where I think
Right.
Ekta comes in, because
Yes.
Ekta is also looking for investments in particularly EduTech. So I guess we'll listen to her from now as to what her goals and challenges are.
So a quick introduction. Born and brought up in India, grew up there, studied there, did my schooling in one of the places called Burhanpur, which is a small town. And then pursued higher education in Pune, moved out of India while working. Right from beginning, my field has been finance and investments. So that is the journey. And right from the beginning, it has been a field wherein I would see less and less females as I rise more ladders. So that's interesting. But yeah, from India to UAE and now in Kuwait, while working here, I got an opportunity to also pursue my MBA, executive MBA from Chicago Booth. That's how I'm part of this amazing community. EdTech, since last 5 years, I have been focusing on education as a sector. I've always been passionate about it because it has played a significant role in my own life, coming from a small place wherein you find how difficult it is to navigate from on the personal front, honestly, coming from a certain type of background and trying to fit in a different community when you move into different cities, different cultures, people from all different backgrounds. So that's where I started realizing the value of quality education. And I would say I'm very fortunate to be at a place wherein I get to work in the areas that I'm passionate about or excited about. Yes, and have been focused quite a lot on the segment which is more of brick and mortar and established, which is K to 12 education. Now we are seeing more and more excitement in the early education as well. But focus area has primarily for investors, especially for big ticket size, it has been quite a lot K-12, because that provides stable cash flows and the annuity and the reasons why an investor would go for education as a sector. But since past few years, we started to understand how the dynamics were changing, not just in education, but globally on various fronts within technology. And education has been age-old methodology since the time we went to school, and now that we see how what roles teachers play and what roles those buildings play and that entire ambience and environment. So much hasn't been changed. EdTech now is coming up as, I would say, not a revolution. My estimate was that it would change the world in next 10 years, but that was completely disrupted by this pandemic and the things and the growth, the speed, the innovation, and how schools have now adapted to this technology. Today, it's beyond my imagination. I would have expected all this to happen, but maybe in 5 to 10 years, but now everything is on fast forward mode because of the current situation. And more deals that I'm seeing into EdTech, and it's like people who would have never, on the investment fronts, and since I'm part of this community, right, we keep talking to other investors as well. And investors who were not even focused on EdTech are now also interested into EdTech. So Maithili, kudos, and you're absolutely in the right space. A lot of excitement and a lot of enthusiasm from investors community as well. We are looking for interesting deals so far as it. We know there is a lot of competition, there is a lot of innovation yet to come, but that also drives a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity, a lot of returns. So yeah.
So, coming back to Maithili, you've been working with some of the top companies in the world. Amazon, I think anybody who works for Amazon I think there's either a love-hate relationship. So they're either super happy about being in Amazon for the rise of Amazon, where Amazon is pretty much everywhere now. I mean, if you think about Amazon as to what a company has become, leaving that and starting your own company to sort of lead that change, can you sort of share that journey with us?
Sure. So, as we had talked about, my parents are entrepreneurs, and I saw that they worked really hard, obviously, but they had a bit of a flexibility. You could never turn off, but at least you had a little bit of flexibility. So when I got married and when it was time for us to think about, what's going on next in our life, I felt that the timing was perfect. Honestly, from a personal journey perspective, where I was lucky that I had a husband who could help us pay and take care of everything, and I could go on this entrepreneurship journey. And what I think the light bulb moment was really when it was like, okay, I've learned so much from Amazon. Maybe I've personally helped the share increase by 300%. I don't know. But if I could do all of that for another company, why can't I do it for myself? And I think when that mindset shifted, it became more of a, there's no harm in failing, but at least I know I tried. So that's when I decided, okay, let's go full force into entrepreneurship. And with KinderPass, so just to take a step back to explain KinderPass, it's a childcare management platform for early childhood centers, so daycares, preschools, nurseries, and just like Ekta said, that we see a huge shift happening in e-learning and in some aspects of EdTech, but for a startup like mine, which was really dependent on having daycares open, we had a huge delay, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about some of the challenges. So I think the timing was right. I think the lessons from my past corporate life or family business experience have been super helpful, but you have to know when it's the right time to make that jump, and I think that was the right time for me.
I mean, and also I realized that, you come from a legal background. Amazon must have actually had some technology aspects to it. But coming into KinderPass, did you have a technology partner with you to sort of spearhead this? No.
One of the lessons I've learned. Actually, I had started off by fully outsourcing development to a third-party company in India, and there's a lot of lessons that I've learned from that. And one piece was I did not have a tech background, so I could understand what the product should be. I knew what the customer journey should be like, and I was able to take all of that feedback and build something which I really love and I stand by very strongly. But did I build it with the right technology or the right way, or why are we having certain issues? Those were things that I had to work through. Now we've shifted and we're building our own team, and it's all happening remotely. So it's exciting what this new post-COVID world is like, but it was definitely a lesson that even though I worked in tech, it doesn't mean I can necessarily understand the best way to build something from an architecture or tech background.
Right. So switching the gears a little bit towards Ekta. Ekta, I mean, I know your background, you've actually been part of a lot of startups. And probably one of the few members, or maybe the only one in a male-dominated boardroom, and especially in the Middle East. I mean, I would say that's a rarity, right? I mean, for both of you.
Sure.
What are your learnings from that? Being in a corporate boardroom where men would actually say, it's male dominated. So how do you sort of maneuver that? What are the key points that you would actually give for budding entrepreneurs, budding female entrepreneurs of Chicago booth, or even in general, to sort of make that journey?
Well, thank you for that question. So I have worked with a startup, so I've been purely on the entrepreneur side. Now on the corporate side, again, I meet a lot of startups because I keep evaluating those opportunities. So on the both sides of the table, if you ask particularly about women in this kind of setup, first of all, women in finance usually we see less in numbers and more so in investment, to be specific, right? Finance is huge. As you narrow it down to investments, and within investments, if I talk about private equity, for example, yes, there is, most of the times I'm the only one I'm the only female in the boardrooms or any meetings or whatsoever. So it's a mix. Now everything is normal for me, but initially it was a lot of excitement, at the same time very challenging in many places. It's funny, I'm not sure whether I should talk about all this. It was challenging more so in the region. I think quite a lot is in our own head, and quite a lot, of course, was environment also, but an environment we cannot change. So adapt to whatever extent was my mantra, that wherever I'm going, adapt to the culture. You don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time, do not have that fear. So far as you are following certain guidelines, so far as you're talking sense, I think it's good. And I was fortunate to be around the people who were like of the same mindset, and I would say educated and from certain background. So it wasn't bad, honestly, for me. It has been very supportive and good. But in terms of how we dress up, in terms of participating in meetings, initially it was a little more challenging because nobody comes and gives opportunity to you like, okay, now your turn, you speak. But I would not particularly categorize that to Middle East or women particularly, because even if as a male also, if you're new and just growing in your career, just starting up, you still need to find opportunities to shine. You still need to find opportunities for yourself. So that challenge was same, but I felt that now when I look back, I feel that I myself had quite a lot of limiting beliefs in terms of being women coming from India, or being in society where probably, my interpretation of things was different. But I would say I would encourage all women out there to not any of these limitations block you. I mean, if you know your subject, yes, that is important to know your subject, because it's easy to point out, to get pointed or called out if we do make a mistake. And we know that, particularly, I think Maithili would agree with me, we would be 200% sure before we say anything. We would like double, triple check in our own head before we say anything, compared to which could be very casual for probably a man or somebody else. But we are so much more conscious of how we are presenting ourselves and what we are saying. Are we being silly? You are of course allowed to ask questions, even if it is silly. Ask question, and now, so next time you will not be silly, right? That's the mindset we may want to have. But initially I didn't have that mindset. I was very scared of not being, being a little careful. But it's funny that initially I was more careful, and now I'm a little more, I would say, open about whatever I have to ask, or open to learning. So if I have to give an advice, I would say just be yourself and respect others, of course, by all means, but just be yourself and go for it. Yeah.
So we're talking about culture, right? I think culture is such an important thing for all. I mean, especially corporate finance or entrepreneurship. So Maithili comes from Canada. So the shift from Canada to
Middle East would be, yeah.
The Middle East, how was that? And how did you sort of make those changes within the challenges presented? I think Maithili can start, and then followed by Ekta.
Sure. Yeah, so Canadian, then of course went to Booth. Then I was in Seattle, New York City, and San Francisco, literally the most like progressive cities maybe in the world. And then I came to Dubai, and even though Dubai is quite open and it's great, it it was a big shock. So if I was to be fully honest, you know, one thing that I missed was, I feel like I'm a woman here. Like I see the difference. If I'm in a meeting, men won't necessarily look at me directly in the eyes, things like that, which is a big change from where I've come from and how I grew up. Another difference is just, you, like Ekta had touched on, you don't want to offend anyone. So you're always careful, even with, you know, the way you speak and your language and things. And anyone who knows me knows I'm a very open and loud person. So to kind of tone that down, because you want to be sensitive to your surroundings. But the shawarmas, shawarmas make up for all of it, the good shawarmas. But another thing that is also missing is I don't see as many, I'm bringing back the women aspect, I don't see as many women startup founders or women executives, or I just don't feel like I had that much of what's the right word, or enough of a crew, if you will, to kind of talk about ideas, or, you know, bounce, you know, different strategies with, or just have that camaraderie, which I felt was definitely there. Even if I look specifically at my booth community, the students or my classmates that I went to school with are great. And in fact, one of them's online right now, I'm seeing. So that love and that support, you miss it when you had it, it was so present in your life. So that was a difficult thing for me to adapt to being in a different environment and without having the support system that I had back in North America. And also many times if I'm speaking to, you know, other women my age, their priorities are probably children and family and other things. I don't want to stereotype, but that's usually what happens in this part of the world. I'm sure Ekta has probably seen that as well. So that's another thing where you have to also fight against certain ideas of what I should be doing at this point of time in my life.
Interesting. I mean, see, the thing is, I also know that Ekta comes from India. So she moved from a large, I mean, I guess in some sense, a large population in India to the Middle East. And I think that's an interesting move too. So what was that journey like? And in particular, finance, corporate finance, because every time I think about corporate finance and women, I mean, there's a lot of women that come in front of me, which is the CEO of Facebook. There's a few ladies in Goldman Sachs who are actually doing a big impact. I had some of my classmates from the Chicago booth in AXP4. They were also working for Goldman Sachs, but in Germany. They were literally managing $1 billion fund. Whether it was Goldman Sachs, Temasek, some large companies. So I see more and more of those, but these stories are never in the forefront. Only if you know that person, that story is there.
True. Yeah.
Right?
That's the challenge I would like to highlight. It becomes harder to find the figures that you want to become your role models or your mentors, to be specific. It was very hard for me to find mentors in the first place, and that too women mentors. You need to have somebody in the similar field to be able to go and, you know. So in terms of that, your reach becomes very limited. So that is one of the challenges I faced. Moving from India to Middle East, it wasn't that big cultural shock as it would have been for Maithili. Of course, because you come from very open background and a little more conservative here. So India is conservative when it comes to women working to a larger extent. Even today, whatever people may say, equality, this, that, no, there are still a lot of on-ground challenges. So on that front, I was already a little tuned in with the surroundings, and I knew that it could be a shift required. However, it wasn't that big a shift. It was easy for me to adapt. It wasn't a shock, I would say. It was a shift. It was okay. Moving to Kuwait from Dubai was a little more, it required me to adjust a little more because Kuwait is a little more on a conservative side, even compared to Dubai. So Maithili, if I call you to Kuwait, you'll be like, I'm not coming. You're like, no.
You'll have to bribe me with some shawarmas, I think. That's the way it'll work.
So it requires, I would say, at end of the day, for women, wherever they go, yes, cultural shock is one thing, but end of the day, the challenge is to find somebody, women entrepreneurs, or as Maithili also mentioned, or women mentors. That is still a challenge because we don't have so many figures out there. I went through that as well. So, and then you have the first-hand experience of many things, and you seldom find people that you could share those with, because again, you need to find a crew or people or some people who have walked the same path. That is a challenge, yes. But I would say anybody who's watching me now, we are here. Please reach out if you have to talk. Yes, that was a challenge. And
yeah, I was going to say that. I was basically going to say that, right? You know, we need more women leaders to be out there to mentor the next generation. So I'm glad that you ladies want to take that forefront and connect with them. Now let's move a little bit towards COVID, right? COVID has changed the way we work. One thing that I'm pretty certain is COVID has given us time, right? In a way that we've never imagined time before. So right now, even though, you know, like we were always busy with something, right now COVID stopped us and said, okay, pause everything. Here's the time. Now reevaluate your life from every aspect of it. I think for a man, I think it's very different. And I think compared to women, I think it's a little bit different, right? Particularly being in the sense, in the corporate finance side, very focused and very specific to corporate finance. Are you seeing more deals coming to you more than ever before? Are you looking at much more fine-tuned opportunities as before? Now that travel has stopped, you're actually able to evaluate more. Is that true?
I wouldn't say more fine-tuned opportunities or whatsoever. It was a lot of opportunities before and now, but what has changed is the dynamics have changed. Certain sectors, there are more opportunities. For example, EdTech, anything to do with digital world, anything to do with technology. If on average I would see 2 deals a week, now I would see like at least 12 or 20 deals a week. You know, there's like surge, like literal surge. And because people also understand now this world has moved to digital, has been pushed into that sort of lifestyle. So many businesses who had just started grew. Many businesses that just started also failed, depending on where they are in their entrepreneurial journey. And there is sudden demand for more and more funding, especially on the entrepreneurship side, because it disrupted, right? How entrepreneurs work, they don't plan for next 5 years. It's like 6 months buffer they have, and next 6 months they should be able to generate, if not raise more funds. This is how they work, right? 6 months gone, no revenue, now what? Right? So that is the situation. So everybody's lining up in terms of, okay, we just need buffer for 6 months. As an investor, I'm like, okay, we don't know after 6 months what's going to be the scenario, whether you will still be able to generate any cash or sustain, or whether you'll be again requiring more funds, because more time a business takes, my return goes down from the investment's point of view. So yes, so more deals in certain sectors. Other sectors automatically have slowed down, I would say. There is a slowdown that we also feel in terms of committing to opportunities. Also, we are also a little more cautious, right? Because there's a lot of uncertainty in coming 2 years. So we are being more mindful. We are being a little more choosy on the investment front. At the same time, we see deals with a lot of funding requirement, and especially it becomes easy for entrepreneurs if they already have certain buffer and they want funding for growth. You know, investors get more confidence if we see that kind of, yes, product is ready, you have the buffer for 6 months, good, you're not desperate, but you want to focus on growth. So that gives us a lot of confidence. Now that's not the story. Everybody is in a difficult situation. So we are seeing that kind of fundraise requirement more than purely focused on growth stories. Survival has become the issue. That is all out there, but yeah.
So Maithili, what about you on the COVID front?
You know those startups that need money? Yeah, I'm one of those. So basically what's happened from my KinderPass's point of view specifically, we were meant to launch literally like a few weeks after school closures happened in this region and in Asia. And so we put a pause on that. We wanted to see, first of all, I wanted to try to save funds, but also we wanted to see what was going to happen, over the coming months. Eventually, we picked up development again, got the product ready, launched it in June. But now our customers are, because we're basically a B2B platform, our customers are not necessarily in the right mindset to either pay for a platform, which they would have easily paid for a few months ago, or they're just not even open. So that made us made me especially shift my focus. So where I was trying to basically have a business operations platform, and I was thinking of it that way, and into expanding into schools and other kinds of educational institutes. Now what I'm looking at is also, okay, what can I do in case schools close? How do I remove that barrier, if you will? So now we're actually working on a new product, which will be, just recommending activities for parents and families of young children. And we will try to launch that as a standalone product cheaply and see how it goes before we decide to invest a lot. So from my point of view, literally the worst time to launch something for daycares was right before daycares closed, but we're trying to pivot from that by being careful, of course, with what we're spending on, and by also looking at where else can we go, what else is exciting out there. And the new idea that I was mentioning with the recommendations for parents is something that we are hoping to launch by the end of the year. And I think this is what helps startups survive, is to know when's the right time to, no, I'm not saying pull the plug, but when's the right time to focus on some new features or some new products. And I think I'm doing the shift at the right time.
Okay. So coming back to Ekta, corporate finance is interesting, right? So you are actually, if you were working for a large private equity firm or a venture capital company, as compared to working for a family-owned private fund, so you're pretty much, how are the dynamics different, and how do you manage those dynamics, from either in a corporate sector or in a family sector?
So
is the drama very similar to an Indian movie kind of a scenario?
So the answer lies in the question itself. The only difference is the family part, right? So we also function as an institution. We also follow certain guidelines that what are the themes of investments, what is our return parameter, what are the type of deals we are gonna. So on the work front, it's all the more same, except that we don't have to do, on the family office side, we don't have to go out and raise funds. Any private equity or VC fund would have one more additional activity to go out and raise funds from their LPs, right? So I don't need to do that because there is fund already there. Family aspect is, I would say, sensitive, because but then it's, I wouldn't mention it as something very different, because any fund manager, either I have to manage my LPs if I'm on the corporate side, if I'm managing a private equity fund or a VC fund, I have to deal with LPs and maintain relationship with them. Okay, here I don't have to raise funds. I don't have to deal with LPs, but here, this is the family whose money I'm managing. So I have to deal with family. So I have to treat them as they are the GPs, they are the LPs, they are the trustees, they are everything. So basically that's a unit. Sometimes there are a lot more activities that come into family office setup other than just the finances, in terms of, because this is not just that, okay, you have to manage this portfolio and that's it. If you're running a family office, there are a lot of structuring, a lot of legalities, a lot of other aspects of generational planning, generational wealth planning. So there are a lot more additional activities, I would say, other than just managing the fund also comes into the play.
Interesting. So again, I mean, since we're talking about the family part of it, I want to move back to Maithili, because Maithili, grew up in a family where the entrepreneur skills was sort of, inbred. I think it's in your blood, it's on your DNA. Even though that's been in your DNA, do you think that has helped you sort of take this leap forward? Or do you see that as a huge advantage? And what advice would you give to people who are sort of on the edge and say, okay, I want to try this, but I'm not sure how?
Family business 100% it has been an advantage. I know the good, the bad, the ugly. I know, and especially in my family, my parents have always been so open with what's going on. And in fact, when I look back, I think it was a little sadistic of them to be so open, because I knew if we were on the verge of bankruptcy. Touch wood, I'm very fortunate. The family business worked very well for my parents. So I saw a success story, like a wonderful immigrant success story. In fact, on the 10th, so in 2 days, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of our family business. So, when you're seeing that history, it's very exciting. You see the potential, you see the growth. What happens here, and this actually reminds me a lot of what Ekta was saying, is there are family dynamics at play. So the initial investment that I used for the startup did come from the family business. So almost like a parent company, if you will. So in some ways, it's like my parents are my investors, but they're also my parents. That's a fine line to balance at times. So there are definitely days where it's, family's around all the time, and that's enough is enough. So it's been a huge advantage. There have been some dynamics that I had to work with. But now what's happening is when it's time to think of a new idea or figure out how to pivot or deal with COVID, for example, I don't feel as alone. I have several people within my family, including my husband, who all has great experience that I can, talk to just, I don't know, just to help move things forward, which was especially important in Dubai. So that's one aspect. But that being said, I love the fact that I have my own outside experience. I think working at Amazon or as a corporate lawyer, all of those experiences have been so crucial for giving me a good, strong work ethic, and also for just different ways of thinking. So, I could talk forever about how working at a company like Amazon is super helpful for a startup. And maybe I'll write a blog about it one day, but I really believe that made a big difference. And for anybody else who's considering going into entrepreneurship, if it's something you're thinking about so much, then at some point just take the plunge, or else it will never happen. It does get more and more difficult, I'm sure, once you have a family and you have other things that you have to start worrying about. The only regret, actually, and for me, is I always had that idea for KinderPass. I wish I used Booth as a way to test that idea. So there is one guy in our class, he used all of the classes for his startup. Whether it was marketing, I think it was a big data marketing or something like that, the strategy classes, NVC, any entrepreneurship class, he used to use his business as the example. So by the time he was done, he had the full support of Polsky. He was an NVC winner. I think he went to, I forgot which one of these huge accelerators. He had used Booth to make a case for his business. And I wish that was the one regret, is that I didn't take advantage of that. So if there's ever any potential students who are interested in entrepreneurship, this is something I definitely tell them to do.
Okay. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. So who's your biggest supporter in your family right now?
Boy, this is hard. It depends on who I fight with or not on that day. But honestly, I would have to say my sister and my husband. My sister is actually running the family business, so she understands the pressure that you get from coming from a successful business sometimes. So that's always great. And my husband has been wonderful because we can afford to do all of this right now and live a comfortable life because he's supporting me both financially and emotionally. So that's great. Though with COVID at times, I could use some space from him, but otherwise it's been good.
I hope he's not tuned in.
No, he's not. I can be honest. We can keep this between our little group.
It's going to be public, so there's no secret here. This is going to be on YouTube. So coming back to Ekta, so I've actually sort of followed, since we started this discussion of getting the women entrepreneurs on board, I had a chance to interact with Ekta a lot more. And I found out during COVID, she catapulted her life, not just in corporate finance, but she's sort of a mind coach, a Facebook celebrity. I think I have very little words to what she's done with the opportunity that she had. And that's amazing. That's exactly what I would love to see, right? I grew up in a household where my mom had a master's degree in the language that, my mother tongue. And she always wanted to achieve more. But back in the 70s and 60s and the 70s, it was a very different story in India. But if she had opportunities like this, I'm sure she would have been pretty interesting as well. But coming back to Ekta, I want to hear from Ekta, how did she take that? What is corporate finance? Then there is this huge mindset coach kind of a thing. And she's inspiring amazing people on Facebook. Ekta, would you share that with us?
Thank you so much for a lot of kind words. So I was anti-social media 6 months ago, honestly, and I was out. I'll just give you a background how it all started. So I was out on my vacation in March. I went to UK for a yoga retreat program, and at that time the lockdown started, and we were getting kicked out of hotels. I was in a hotel, and we were actually getting kicked out, and everybody was panicking, what do we do? And we were not getting access to any Airbnb because due to regulatory requirements, Airbnbs were also not supposed to rent out. So we were like, okay, send us back. But then flights were also shut down. So there was we were in the middle of nowhere. And that's when I started with this going on Facebook Live and started sharing my story. Very soon, started to connect with a lot of people. And realize that many people out there are really struggling, depressed, and negative mindset. And here I was learning a lot of skills about shifting the mindset and how to stay positive. It just started that way with interaction. It was supposed to be a casual interaction, which was supposed to probably stop at some time, but it didn't stop because the following kept on growing. So thank you for calling a Facebook celebrity and all. Sounds very nice, but now it's like a dual life also, which I'm managing on the social media front. And sometimes it feels like two different characters. I try to merge them as much as I could, but yeah. And it has been a huge personal development journey for me, honestly, because one of my biggest fear was judgment from other people, right? That's what I was saying, that initially in my career also, when I started working in this field that I am, or when I moved to Middle East, there was so much resistance from within, even to ask a simple question. The whole idea was this fear of judgment from other people, right? One, because of the women, two, because from where I was coming from, and three, there would be a lot of own limiting beliefs, right? But while going live every day and being part of social media, which I was so scared that I was not even part of that community, it just opened my mind to a different level.
That's very
Can I just
interesting.
add something to that? I think this just reminds me also that your business, your work, your career can be something that you focus on, I don't know, 90%, 95%, 50% of your time, but having sometimes that creative outlet or something different, which allows you to be your whole and true and authentic self, is really great. And so when I hear Ekta talking about her other piece, it's like, I think you needed that sometimes, you know, whether it's a reminder to yourself or to others, it just represents another aspect of you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, lucky are those people who pursue their passion as part of their full-time work or whatever they're doing. Like, I'm passionate about the work I'm doing, at the same time the new life that I just got used to. But yes, whatever passion someone has, because that's the spark that is needed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, trust me, so many people that I interact with, even like thousands of people, right, watching, and many are like, zombie would be a wrong word, but yes, they're like lost hope from life already. Why is that? So yeah, to connect, being authentic self and connecting to whatever the passion is, that makes you lively for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. I mean, you're inspiring not by the hundreds, you're inspiring by the thousands. So
Thank
you
you so
guys are
much.
true role models that way. You know, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I really wanted your voices to be heard. You guys need to do more. I think continue to share. I mean, what I've actually believed also bringing this community together was there's a lot of, I mean, I think for the CEO and the CXO level, there's always plenty of people, there's budgets, there's company budgets that actually allows them to be more in the focus. But internally in the booth community, each of us have those journeys, and that story is important. Even if it impacts one person, and I'm happy about this.
Absolutely.
So I think it's we've reached about time for Q&A. I think there's some Q&A questions coming in from some budding women entrepreneurs as well. A girl called Sophia Go is asking a question. I think Ekta could take this first, and then Maithili could also answer. Being a female entrepreneur in the tech industry, I've had to face gender bias about women being in tech, especially in education tech, which may not seem as a tech solution to traditional male investor. Have you faced this gender bias in ed tech industry, and what advice do you have to graciously realign their perspective? I think there's one thing about perception. 2 is being taken seriously. 3 is about domain knowledge. So this question has quite a bit of elements to it.
So I will answer this from an investor's point of view, because you're coming as an entrepreneur in EdTech, right? So as an investor, this has nothing to do with me being women. I'm just saying, as an investor, when a project or a deal or an entrepreneur comes to me, if it is women, honestly, I would be more interested. Why? Because there are a lot many accelerators and funds, they want to see women entrepreneurs. Even if there is one woman in the management, we consider that as a plus. So any woman out there thinking about entrepreneurship, especially in the tech, please know that you will be valued a lot more than your male counterparts in tech. Now, what is important here is, do you have that domain knowledge? Okay, you being there and contributing actively, being an active member of the team, of the key management team, you will be valued a lot more. Please know. So that is one thing. And yes, domain knowledge is important. Within tech, like Maithili mentioned, right? Not having tech background, but creating a tech product, right? That means this is additional layer of challenge. As an investor, my first criteria would be, who is the founder, who is the CEO, who is the one running the show? Is that person either able to handle everything by himself or herself, regardless of men or women? If not, are they able to create a team to support that, right? So again, if you yourself are a techie, excellent, you are in the best spot. If not, then you must have that kind of team to support your business case, right? Gender bias within entrepreneurship now, I would say honestly, globally, There are funds that are particularly being launched. Again, this is less in number, but I would say on an average, investors are also conscious. We also see that tech industry, mostly we see a lot of youngsters starting up with an idea, right? And if we see there is a woman having an active role, we would, again, this could be coming from bias maybe, but we would have at least little more confidence in that team if there is a woman compared to all else same, core competence, product, everything is same. The only difference is there is a woman and there is not. Where there is a woman, I would prefer that, and there are many investors who would prefer that, because we would take that more seriously, honestly, and that team more seriously. So please know that, consider that as a plus if you're a woman, if you're into entrepreneurship, and if you have the technical background, you are a star. Go for it. Please talk to me if you're also running a business already.
Awesome. Maithili, what's your take on this?
Well, my take is, Ekta, I'm talking to you right now. So that's number one. I know, it's too much. I had to, I couldn't, it was too good to be true. But Sophia, I would love to get in touch with you. So please feel free to look me up on LinkedIn or something, that's for sure. Like I had mentioned, not having the tech background has been a bit of an issue sometimes. But where I 150% make up for it, and it happens also sometimes with meetings where men think they know better than me, is I know my customers inside and out. I know exactly how a daycare runs. I've done it within my own family business. I've set it up. I have spoken to so many customers. So if somebody says, oh, but you didn't think of this, I many times have the answer on why I thought about it and have not prioritized it, or why it's something that's going to happen at a later stage. I feel so confident about my customers and knowing my product that it's allowed me to just speak up in situations, obviously respectfully, where I think people are not necessarily giving me credit or giving me the right value. Where I am, I think, I guess another place where I am hoping to make a difference is when I can show a very good traction. Right now, I'm still at a very early stage. I am hoping that within a few months, when the numbers are able to speak for themselves, the potential investors should be interested. Also, one thing I never forget is I have the background, I have the pedigree, if you will. And like Ekta says, I think there is some recognition about the importance of having diversity, whether it's women or different people from different backgrounds in a team. So I try to make sure that that's something that's always there within my own team as well. So I'm hoping that helps.
Okay, I mean, following through an interesting question coming from Akshita. She's asking, what's a key advice you would give a budding entrepreneur who wants to join EdTech in a developing economy like India? I mean, everybody thinks India is large. So maybe she could actually work with you on some of your deals and help you partnership or some sort of a collaboration together. Yeah.
Can I, if I can start? So I think actually India is probably one of the most exciting places when it comes to EdTech. What I've seen, whether it's learning or having actual brick and mortar institutes, that is one country, I think many Asian countries, that really respects and values education. So if you're able to show a benefit that is easy for customers to use, I think it's super exciting, which is in fact exactly why we decided that we're going to build a standalone product for parents with the recommendations, because I believe so strongly in the Indian market. So I think it's very exciting. We've done some research. We're seeing that VCs are also investing heavily into EdTech companies that are in India or South Asian region. So I think it's super exciting. Did I answer the question? I think I did.
So that's great. So I think there's a few people who are also replying on chat. So Ekta, get ready. There are some deals coming through to you. They're giving you more work. And Sophia says thank you. I know we are about 4 minutes away. So I know Ekta has another call to attend to, and she's quite busy. So is Maithili as well. So what I would like to do is, I think, one closing statement from both of you, and then I think we could end this session for today.
Go ahead, Maithili.
Oh, good. You know what? Entrepreneurship, from my perspective, is super exciting. It's super messed up also. If I'm being real, you have to balance your career, personal lives, and your business is your child. It's your everything. So if you, like I had mentioned earlier on, if you feel you're ready to take that plunge, don't think it's as exciting as seeing, some unicorn startup make it and get valued at billions of dollars. It takes a lot of work to even get started. Forget about the amount of work that it takes to reach there. So once you do take the plunge, though, maybe it's hard to go back to a corporate life. I have to admit, I think it's going to be very difficult. So even if God forbid, KinderPass doesn't work, I think I'll always be interested now in working more in the startup and entrepreneurial world. So my thing is good luck. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's the way I see it.
Well, I mean, we need more women leaders to come on board.
That's always helpful.
Amazing. Okay, so from my side, again, consolidating all my learnings, I would say that entrepreneurship, yes, of course, as Maithili also mentioned, it's challenging. So if you're ready to go for it and withstand all that rigor, that is one. And if you do decide, you take the plunge. If you do decide, team is one of the most important things that as an investor also we look at. Is the first thing is the team. Okay, if you're doing all solo, all by yourself, don't do that. Find a team that can help you grow. And usually what happens is when we set up a company as an entrepreneur, either we want to do everything by ourselves or partner with people we already know, partner with friends. Now that is good so far as your skill sets complement. One catch that we always see is people end up partnering with friends, which is good, but with overlapping skill sets. So that doesn't help. End of the day, you will have to hire someone else from outside to do the job. And at the same time, you have already given the equity to your friend or family and made the partners and have more people on the team, and decision making becomes even more challenging. So be mindful of your team. That is first and most important thing that an investor would look at, because you would want to grow eventually and make money out of that. Most of the people, entrepreneurs, get bogged down a lot by the limited source of funding or lack of funding. I would say that there are like thousands of investors actually looking for projects, interesting projects where they also could make money. If you have a case, know that if you have a case, a product, or even an idea, know that there are thousands of investors. You are one pitch away from the right investor, period. There is always one investor waiting for you. You're just one pitch away, okay? So have that mindset that you can find money. So don't get bogged down because of the money part. You will find that. Have the right team and work on the product.
Well, I think I learned two things tonight. One is you're one pitch away from that finding money. And the other one was jump into the entrepreneurship. And again, thank you so much for joining the session today. We loved having you ladies as part of our panel, and the knowledge sharing was amazing. And I hope the people who have attended really enjoyed this. I'm already getting some notes from the attendees that it was a great talk for them. So you guys have actually inspired somebody. Again, from the Booth Malaysia community, I'm Anand. I thank Lenora and CK from the Hong Kong campus who've actually helped me a lot as well. There's a team behind me as well, you know, invisible, but who's helping me organize these, put these together. And we will continue to bring more leaders, women entrepreneurs to the foray. And I basically would say, let's keep these inspiring talks going, and have a wonderful evening, everybody. Peace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn, Ekta Tolani, you can find me. And if you have any questions, if Anand, you get any further questions, feel free to pass it on, and I would be happy to take them. Okay?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much.
What she said. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.